Hi, my name is Chris Goldie, and I'm one of the career coaches at Stanford Career Education on the team that works with PhDs and postdocs. I coordinate most of our programming having to do with the faculty job search. The goal of this video is to provide you with some options for resolving some of the most common puzzles that people face when constructing their CV for the faculty job search. This is a companion to our other, more basic video about CV construction. In this video, I highlight examples from actual CVs of PhDs and postdocs who are now faculty members. Puzzle number 1, how to list your postdoc appointment. There are 3 choices. The first option is to include it with education. However, a postdoc is training. It is not a degree that results from a degree granting program. And so I would counsel you to change the heading from education to education and training, as you can see in this example. The second option is to make it a discrete position. Typically, that's called an academic appointment, or you could call it professional work experience, especially if you have other industry experience to include as well. The third option is to include it in with research on your first page. There's no one right answer to how to put your postdoc. Those are 3 very viable choices, and people make that decision based on what their own preferences are, and perhaps what their constellation of other experiences are and how they want to highlight themselves. Puzzle number 2, how to highlight and show off your research. This is one of your most important attributes and one of the reasons you'll get hired. So I think it's important to show off your research wherever possible. Often we see CVs which barely describe the candidate's research, relying only on the publication list to do this. Looking to your own faculty member and more senior faculty members' CVs as guides might really not be helpful in this case. They are established senior researchers. At this stage, when you're still applying for faculty positions, you want the reader to know who you are as a scientist and scholar by the time they finish that first page. And so I think it's important to really call out and highlight your research. There are a couple of ways to do this as well. One way is to separately identify your research interests. One option for doing that is a list. Another is a list of both your research and teaching interests combined. And a third is a narrative, as we see in this paragraph. A second strategy is to have a research experience section and to elaborate on the research work that you have accomplished. One way to organize experience is by role. In this case, graduate student and undergraduate student. The role is what is highlighted rather than the location where the research was done or the project per se. For each role, this person details the research project and also some of the outcomes as the result of their effort. This person uses the title Graduate Research Fellow. I also offer the title Doctoral Student Researcher. Both of those are probably better than Research Assistant, which sounds like you're subordinate and doesn't really elevate you as an independent researcher and scholar. These examples demonstrate a slightly different organizational structure, emphasizing the project. The first one here shows different projects that were done at different points in time. You can see the crescendo or the building of these research projects. The second example shows discrete projects done at the same time in the same lab. Puzzle number 3, how to list grants and fellowships and how much detail to provide. Often we see something that looks like this, a list. Often the list includes the awarding agency, the title of the fellowship or grant, what does it represent, how much money was it or how competitive, and typically the date the award covers. You should list these in reverse chronological order by the end date of the grant or fellowship. It's okay to list the amount of money. It's okay to list declined awards, just put declined in parentheses. And it's okay to even include something significant from your undergraduate days, particularly if it's a national level honor. This example elaborates on the awards and explains them. This is particularly helpful if it's not well known, or if it's from a non-US granting agency, you could use a shorthand like equivalent to the NIHK award. That sort of thing can help decode the awards that you've gotten for the reader. When you have a lot of awards, congratulations, and you can put them in subsets, which will help the reader and stop it from just looking like a wall of text. It will help the reader to make sense. In this case, the person organized their awards by the source of the funding. You can create a separate section just for grants if you have them. This example includes a lot of detail, which is very helpful for understanding the scope of grants, and again, helps elevate your research and helps the reader to understand what you do. Now, I would note here, you only want to enlist the grants that you contributed to submitting, in contrast to those that your PI wrote that are simply funding your research. Now, I want to note that this person called this section funding, which makes it a little bit ambiguous as to who the author was. Here's another detailed description of someone's grants. And here they use the title independent funding, which makes it clear that the CV holder who lists herself as the PI is the author of each of these grants. This listing includes the details of the grant, what it's known as, and its impact score. She includes the title of the grant and the goal of the grant. Now, I would say that this could probably be formatted to make it a little bit easier to read and to distinguish the title of the grant from the goals of the grant. What if you did help your PI to write a grant? Well, first talk to your PI and make sure that they are in agreement with the role that you played and support you listing it in your CV. Here's one way to do it. Indicate the role you played. Here, the person wrote one of the aims of the grant in the listing number 2 and 1/3 of the application in listing number 4. Puzzle number 4. How to organize teaching experience and how much detail to provide. The amount of detail may depend on whether you're applying at a teaching-focused institution and how much teaching the job expects. The more central the teaching is, the more you probably want to talk about your teaching in more detail, and you might want to put it higher up in your CV. This example helps us to see all of the different kinds of things that can be included in a teaching sections: instructor of record, teaching assistant, guest lecture, workshops and non-classroom teaching, and pedagogical training. This person, I think, has one of each and puts them all together into one section. You may have enough teaching to organize your teaching into subsection. This example organizes by location, where the teaching was done. Thus, the emphasis, the first thing that we see, is where the teaching was done, not exactly on what the person taught. The second example organizes by course. This example is a combination, first organized by role and second by course. Mostly we see the title of the course and the content of it. Another subsection you could include would be pedagogical training. Finally, this example gives us a lot of additional detail, the size of the class and the evaluation scores. So these numbers are sorts of things that you might also want to include. Puzzle number 5, mentoring. How much detail to include and how to list the students. This first option highlights different mentoring roles, where the mentoring took place and what the person did. The second option focuses on specific students. You can name them, as in the top example, or not, as in the bottom example, which simply counts them. If you do name the students, you may wish to let them know that you're including them on your CV. Occasionally, when someone has mentored a lot of students, we see them put them together in a chart like this. Well, there you have it. Many options for tackling 5 of the biggest puzzles that students have when writing a CV for a faculty job. Thank you so much, and wishing you all the best.